It is Thursday, June 8th, and I am calling the regular meeting of the Cedar Springs City Council to order at 7:01. Rise and say the pledge of allegiance.
Here.
Miss Gamma. Not here.
I don't see them yet, they are the.
I know they keep those, but, Ms. Nixon, Ms. Powell, here, Ms. Race, and Mayor Conley is here. At this time, I would take a motion to excuse Ms. Race, Ms. Powell, or Ms. Hamel, and Ms. Nixon. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? We hope, Renee, when you get to see this, we hope you're feeling better, and Molly and Ashley, we hope to see you shortly. All right, moving on to a presentation from the Lakeland Library Cooperative. Carol Daw, I'm saying your name correctly. Awesome, wonderful, thank you. We would love to have you stand at the podium. It's mic'd, so we can hear you, although, I mean, I know you're a librarian, so you probably.
Not insane. From 5 children, if you didn't want to start with that, you can just take your piece from the very beginning. So, thank you all for having me. And my name is Carol Daw, and I'm the Lakeland Library Cooperative Director. I've been with Lakeland for 5 years, as I was telling your mayor. I'm celebrating my 40th year as a professional librarian. I started when I was 6 years old.
That's a lot of books.
I'm lying, but I have worked in a support capacity, helping public libraries for the last 28 years. It really has been the joy of my life. My daughter was about 9 months old when I made the switch from being a law librarian at a law firm in Chicago to working with public libraries. And then I moved up here about 5.5 years ago to be the director of Lakeland. Lakeland Library Cooperative has 42 member libraries. It's one of 11 library cooperatives in Michigan. So library cooperatives support public libraries. We are not a public library. There's a big confusion about the difference between Lakeland Library Cooperative and the Grand Rapids Public Library, the Kent District Library. A lot of people think Lakeland and Kent District are the same thing. So I'm going to spend a couple minutes just kind of clearing the air on that because there is some confusion. So Lakeland provides services to 42 member libraries, which include 82 library buildings in 8 counties: Allegan, Iona, Kent, Montcalm, Muskegon, Newaygo, and Ottawa counties. 40 of the Lakeland member libraries join together to have what's called a shared system. So that's the online catalog that you see when you walk into Cedar Springs Library, when you place a hold from home, when you check out your books, when you discharge your books. That's called a shared system.
I have a book right now.
Pardon me?
I have a book right now.
So 40 of the libraries pool their financial resources to have that type of database, that shared system. Kent District has its own shared system for its 20 branches. Grand Rapids Public Library has its own shared system for its 9 or 10 branches. They can never remember how many branches they have. So we support all 42, including Kent. We do some shared some group purchases, we do advocacy work, we do consulting, we do board development, we do staff development, we help hire directors, we do a lot of different things for all our members, as do the other 10 cooperatives in Michigan as well. So we're a support function. Somebody explained this, said this the other day. We're like the Chamber of Commerce to the businesses in the community. So we're the Chamber of Commerce for libraries, if that helps you at all. As far as what resource sharing we have, we serve 800,000 residents in our shared system. Grand Rapids has about 200,000 residents that they serve, and then Kent District serves about 400,000 or 500,000, but it's about 425,000. So we have in our shared system for our 800,000 residents, our 40 libraries, we have about 600,000 titles that people can share. Kent District Library has about 700,000 titles plus. These are just books, paperbacks, magazines, physical titles. We're not talking digital yet, but they only serve about 425,000. So they have twice, they have more than we do, and they only serve half the population. So you're getting a very good broad selection of both with both services, but Kent District has a lot more titles than you do. The average hold for an item at Cedar Springs is anywhere from 1 day to 60 days. Cedar Springs is a very small collection within their own library. The average hold for Kent District Library is about 15 days, and that's usually the new books, the popular ones, like James Patterson and things like that. Both provide reciprocal borrowing. You can get books from almost anywhere in Michigan called from Melpat. And then as far as digital content, again, the Lakeland libraries, 35 of those libraries have something called the Lakeland Digital Library, and we share about 57,000 titles. Kent District has its own collection of about 240,000 plus titles of just ebooks and audiobooks. There's some other things like films and other things, but I didn't even deal with those statistics. And the average wait for a Lakeland digital book is about 65 days. We are working on that. And at Kent District Library, it's about 29 days. So does that make sense? There's a real difference in the level of service. One of the other things that Lakeland does is we provide delivery to 40 of the libraries. We also deliver to Kent District, but they have their own delivery service, as does Grand Rapids. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So if you see the lilac color, that's where Lakeland service area is. You can see that people have kind of jumped around in membership. I call this the Hatfields and the McCoys map, because there were some feuds and people left one library cooperative to join another. But you can also see that Lakeland being in that lavender or lilac is a pretty solid group. And it's a very, very strong, committed group of libraries, all 42, and we do help each other quite a bit. So if you go to the next slide, please. So what I did here is these are the Lakeland libraries. This is kind of hard to read, but these are all four. Well, actually, there's a second page, which we'll get to in a second. Thank you, sorry.
We have
But-
a digital copy of this, yeah,
Yes,
that we will be able to like post with this packet.
yes. Yes, I sent it to Darrell, so you should get, well, you have it here, so.
Yeah. So it can be included as part.
It's in your packet.
I know it's in our packet, but I meant, well, of course, it's in our packet. When it gets to the phone number. That's what I want it to be accessible.
So what this is, if you look at the top left corner, is this is the 2021-2022 annual report for state aid for the Lakeland Library Cooperative from the Library of Michigan. Every year, libraries self-report. And the reason I bring this up is because we have 42 libraries with 5 or 6 different fiscal years. So depending on the end of your fiscal year, it depends on when everybody has to report by February 1st of each year. But if your fiscal year, for example, ends March 30th, then you're going to be a whole year behind some of the other libraries. So this data is good, solid data, but it does vary a little time lapse like because of the different reporting years, if that makes sense. The only thing that we added were the columns at the end, total per capita costs and collection costs per capita. So if you look at the first 12, you'll see that Spring Lake down to Grant, those are in dark green, and those are very well-funded libraries. And the reason we call them very well-funded libraries is anything over about $45 per capita is a very solid, good funded library. And we go all the way up to $67. And if you look at numbers, if you look at the fourth one, or the third one, Lake Odessa Community Library, and I'll read this to you, that's a class 2 library that serves between 4,000 and 7,000 people. So we have classes of libraries. Kent District is a class 6 library over 50,000. And then Croton is our only class 1 library that is under 4,000. Cedar Springs is a class 3 library that serves between 7 and 12,000. So Lake Odessa is a class 2 library, but it is the third best funded library within Lakeland at $61.82 per capita. So it doesn't matter how big you are, it just matters about the funding. So
Per person.
per person. So if you go to the next slide, please. You'll see then that there were some in pink and the ones in red, and I highlighted Cedar Springs in yellow. Cedar Springs has a total per capita cost of $20.03. There's some disparity there because of the way your funding is divided between the Stolen Township and the city. The city residents are paying about $30 to $33 per capita, correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
And then see, the Solon Township, they're paying about $13 per capita, so that's where you get that $20 per capita. But if you look at the far right column, you'll see that collection cost per capita is $1.75. If we can go back a screen if possible, please. You'll see that Kent District Library is at $9.91 per capita, and Lake Odessa is at $5.36 per capita. So when you're talking about buying materials, $1 doesn't go very far. The average book that we get with a good discount is anywhere between $10 and $20. And that includes some video games are more expensive than that, but about $10, $15 per item is pretty good. So if you're at $9 per capita like Kent District, you're buying about a book per person per year. We're buying at Cedar Springs just a tenth of that, or an eighth of that. Does that make sense? Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is state aid. So the way libraries are funded, as you know, there are millages, there are contracts with townships, and then we get state aid. So half of the money that the library cooperative gets is from state aid. We get our other half from from services we provide members and their fees. So in 1977, state aid was set at 50 cents per capita. Does anybody want to guess what it is today in 2023?
50 cents.
50 cents per capita. And it's only been at that level 3 times in 46 years. It's always been less than 50 cents. So when I started here, we had 1.3 million people in West Michigan. Now we have 1.4 million. We were at 38 cents per capita, so we have moved up to 50 cents, but we're still at 1977 rates of taxation. So libraries struggle because it's a very complicated funding system in Michigan. And it's also, and I can't go anywhere without saying this, there are 11 ways to be a public library in Michigan, and it drives me out of my mind, because there are 11 different ways to establish a library. So there are not 11 different laws, but 11 different funding models and governance models that run all these 396, I beg your pardon, libraries in Michigan. So you can see that it is a complicated issue. What isn't complicated is the value that you get for the money that you spend. And you're all doing your due diligence, and I don't have a dog in this hunt. I just want you to know that if you can spend $1 something on a collection, or you can spend $9 on a collection per person, and your millage would actually go from 1.2 down to 1.1, and you do the math. My recommendation would be that you join Kent District Library. You would still be a member of Lakeland, you would still have those services, but you would have much more value and much more opportunity for your residents if you were to join a larger system like Kent District Library.
To be clear, the library board, if they were to go under a contract, it's the library board that would have to make that decision. And otherwise, if it was to be voted on, then it needs to go out to the vote for the people.
That's true too, but I thought this would be a place.
It's a wonderful place, just, it's not a choice or a decision that we can make. I think we decide if we can put it on the agenda. But I think the library board, or on the ballot, but I think the library board has to ask us to put it on the ballot. Not 100% sure how that works.
I just think it's very important that people that are watching at home and people might see this later have very clear understanding of what services are provided. That someone came up to me at the last library meeting, a trustee from the library, and they said, I'm concerned, how can you be in charge of Lakeland and want us to leave Lakeland and join PBL? And it was very clear, and she's not the only person in Michigan that gets this confused, that there was a disconnect there.
Yeah, it's a service,
It's a
not a
service.
library or a
Exactly.
building or it's like
Yeah.
the Kent County Sheriffs are service. A very good service that we like. Yeah. Yes,
Do you have any negatives about joining PBL at all? Do you have any?
Yes, change is very different. So anytime you're going to go from one entity to another, it's kind of like transferring schools in your second year of high school or your second year of college. It can be a big change. So there's also a change in culture. So that isn't going to be easy for staff and probably for some patrons. But you have to look at it in the broad picture and see what you're going to get for your money too, because it is taxpayer dollars. And quite frankly, the Cedar Springs Library is a wonderful little library, but they have a terrible collection. They spend about $14,000 a year on materials. And they don't have they really rely a lot on Lakeland, on the other collections, and Lakeland is going to start putting some standards into place so that there is more equity. We just did a strategic plan, and one of the things that we're focusing on is equity, diversity, and inclusion. And it's not just as far as who we serve, but how we serve to make sure that it is equitable. So that a library like Carrick District Library or Lake Odessa, that are well-funded libraries, are getting the same benefits as the libraries that are less funded, because sometimes they can drag on the system. The great thing about being in a cooperative or being in a multi-branch library like Kent District Library is everybody works together. And even internationally, when you look at statistics of libraries that borrow and lend, it's almost always a 40-60 split. It's never like 80-20. Very rare. If you lend a bunch of books, you usually borrow a bunch of books, and vice versa. So there's that cooperation has always been there for public libraries.
a couple things, because Counselor Powell and I were at the meeting at the library board, and a couple of things that you pointed out to me that were very striking was that our library in Cedar Springs has no digital, like we don't pay for any digital contribution, correct?
You don't provide any digital contribution.
Correct. I'm trying to find a way to say
You spend
that.
$1,800 a year to be a part of the digital content, and that also will probably change.
Because that's not fair.
Right.
I mean, on an overarching, and as a person who just waited 11 months for a book digitally, I put it on hold last July. And I just got it. Like, that's a problem, right? That's not fair of us.
Well, it's not fair to your patrons if you can get better service elsewhere. If it's
But I
the
mean-
only service in town, then what else are you going to do?
But even with,
There are
even
other
with
ways.
Lakeland, it's not fair that we contribute so little money.
Yes, that is true. However, we're not going to mandate and bully people to do things. either.
I get
You
it.
know what I mean?
So
So
we're
the
paying,
larger do help the smaller, but it has to be more equitable all the way.
right, we're having a struggle right now, that we have a contract that isn't equitable.
Yes.
And that's the piece that we have to try to resolve.
Correct.
And we're paying 1.22 mils. We have another entity paying 0.4, and that total funding isn't enough to be able to provide the supports that we need to provide for our library.
If everybody was paying 1.2 mil, you would have a just below adequately funded library. It would still, you'd probably still be in the pink, but you'd be at the top of the pink and not in the bottom of the red. And I'm sorry, I probably put it in the way I did, but I wanted it to be visually on the screen.
Yeah.
So, you know, people say, well, $400,000, you can run a village library for that. No.
maybe for one person.
I mean, you can run a library for that, but it's not going to be the same quality if you're serving 12,000 people.
And equity, this was the big piece we had also. Equity means the same millage, not the same dollars necessarily, right?
Right.
I pointed that out and was told that that isn't what equity meant, but that is,
That's my
in the
understanding.
world of library language, that's what equity is, yeah?
Yeah, and if you look at the, pardon me,
More per person.
yes, that's why I did the per capita.
But the point, like, to be equitable, we should pay the same millage.
In a community,
Yeah.
I think so. I don't know why one patron or one person should pay a lower amount than another. That's like, when you go to the grocery store and if you have a family of 5, you pay less for loaf of bread than you do for a family of 2 because you eat more bread. Doesn't work.
Yeah,
That's how free markets work.
Like,
So I don't know how that would work.
For schools, we pay the same millage across the school district. I mean, we don't say, well, you have 5 children, so you pay more millage, or you don't have children, you don't pay any millage. But that's not how, like, we all pay the same millage.
Yeah.
So, and did you have a question, Councilman Howell? You looked at me like you were gonna ask a question.
So it's the millage is based on the taxable value, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the difference between cities or townships, there's different taxable values, and therefore you collect more money.
But those are still kind of mystifying me. Because then there's that whole heavy thing and all of those. And all of
Nothing
that,
that has to do with-
which, but yeah.
And the Lakeland card privileges and the KBL card
Oh, yeah.
privileges continue to confuse me because I get a different story every time I ask. Can you use a Lakeland card at a KBL library and check out books, or do you have to stay in the library to read a book?
No, you can check out books. You can't, if you place a hold, we were just talking about this today. So I'm Carol Dodd and I live in Cedar Springs right now. I can get a KBL card. I can log into KBL, place a hold and pick it up at a KBL library. I can't pick it up at Cedar Springs. If then Cedar Springs were to join Kent District Library, the reverse would be the same unless something changes. Where then the Cedar Springs person who's now a member of KBL will have all the full services of KBL, but can also go to Sparta and pick up a book if they had a card where they could place a hold and pick it up. But let's say that was their Lakeland home library. So
Okay, so part of it,
yeah.
okay. That's just a totally different story that I've gotten in the past.
So,
Now,
Right.
you're not gonna get the top, so I place a hold in the Cedar, I place a hold. I'm not gonna get the top book that's waiting because at KBL, but let's say the Lakeland libraries don't own, because KBL patrons are going to get those first.
Okay.
So I want the new James Patterson novel, I may be 100th on the list. I'm right at the top, and then a KBL patron comes in, places a hold, even though I've been waiting a year, I get put down and they get it, because they're the taxpayers, and they're the ones who get priority. Same thing with digital material.
to clarify, 'cause this is the question you asked me on the phone, and I know someone who does this for their kids club. You could walk in with your Cedar Springs card to the Rockford Library,
Which is KDL.
which is KDL. Any book on the shelf in there, you can take it off the shelf, go up, check it out, and take it home.
If they use that card, they create a Kent District library card for you, using, I think, the same number.
It's like a member sharing.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that, because that isn't what I was told.
Digital materials are different.
Right.
Her understanding was that you actually couldn't check out the book, but you could come read it in the
Yeah.
library.
All right, well, I'm gonna hold you to that if I get into it again. So now you said the Lakeland may begin to require a dedicated library note?
No.
No.
wishing made it so.
Yeah.
But Lakewood is looking at standards to help our libraries become better libraries. So, for example, if you look at one of these libraries and you go to the Cedar Springs, if you would, and you see that that's a, let's see, collection cost per capita $1.75. We might say to our members, for those of you that are under $6 per capita for, and I'm just making up these numbers, but $6 per capita for collections, we're gonna hope that in 3 years, you might be able to get to that. Might take some libraries 5 years, but we're gonna give them goals. But we can't, as far as I know, we can't really mandate a lot because we are not an entity, so we can encourage and empower.
Now, the state aid has the requirement of having a dedicated millage, correct? To be able to qualify for the state aid?
It's 3/10 of a mil of public funds.
Okay,
And I don't have that quote in front of me. Lakeland is a little different, that in our plan of service, which is our bylaws are a part of, our addendum to our plan of service, but cooperatives have what's called a plan of service. Okay. Fancier name for bylaws. We also have bylaws. Bylaws are really how you run your organization. This is what our service model is. We, in Lakeland, we say you have to have 3/10 of a mil from property.
okay,
So ours is different than a lot of other cooperatives. We were, and I wasn't here when they had the foresight to do this, to say, we don't want it to be able to come from penal fines or a contract.
Right.
It has to be from real estate tax. So that
Which is
3/10
the
of the mil has to be from the mill.
so we have a dedicated millage.
Yeah.
We have a contract with someone who does not,
But they still contribute, so.
but it's not a dedicated millage.
Right, but you have the majority, because you are
Because
contracting with them.
we're their ticket. That's the part that needs to be understood. Like,
And we
our
don't
dedicated
address that
millage,
in our plan of service. We can't mandate the library, we can't have contracts and things.
no,
like that.
right,
So that's the kind of the gray matter there.
And then- also to be clear, you said at the library meeting that the contract that we have is very unusual.
That you have board members from a service area contract, that you're probably one of the only ones in the state. There may be a few others, but no one's done that, no.
And
That
then
just does not happen.
the inequity in the contract money is also unusual.
That's more common than the fact that they have seats on a board.
Okay,
Yes.
just to clarify.
But just because something is common or uncommon or whatever, it doesn't mean it's right, or doesn't mean it's that way.
Sure. But I also just want to clarify
I
that it's
understand.
not even general practice.
No, especially the contracts, those are usually just contractual. And many libraries have in their, I don't know, it's not in their bylaws, but many libraries have a policy that they will not contract with anyone that does not meet the knowledge. So Grant, for example, Grant District Library, they have, I don't even know if they have any contracts, that they don't have, there's one area that would like a contract, but they don't want to take the same as their millage, and they will not even look at a library that will not take the same as their millage because of the other. And that's just one example.
Just clarifying that what we are trying to establish is not like crazy town. It's actually
No,
like
it's
a standard of what should be. So, all right, those are some of the big issues that I felt like we needed to get out there. So other questions?
I just want to say you've been so helpful guiding us through this library crisis, and I really appreciated your help with it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You also were the folks that found Tammy, who we adore and are very sad and resigned.
I hope.
Yes, I was
And
with
that's
the,
a part of the
interview.
Lakeland, Lakeland does that. I don't, we don't charge extra to help find, library directors. We feel that if there are strong boards and strong directors, there are strong libraries, and then therefore there are strong members.
You're also supporting us while we don't have a grant.
Yes.
So, and we are grateful for that.
Again, my pleasure.
So,
Any
Mr. Gross, I haven't given you any questions?
I have no questions, you just all go. And feel free if you do have questions. Give me a second to do my-
I know Darla.
Thank you all.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. And you do not have to stay.
Thank you.
Do not feel any.
I'm going on vacation and then.
Oh, wonderful. I'm going something fabulous. All right, then moving on to public comments. The council welcomes and encourages the public to speak during the public comment and public hearing portions of the agenda. However, council policy is to hear the public comment, not to act on the public comment at this time. Concerns brought before the council during the public comment portion of the agenda will be referred to the city manager for action. If after communicating with the city manager, no resolution is reached, the concern will be elevated to the mayor and then eventually to the council for action. Those citizens wishing to speak on agenda or non-agenda items will be allowed a maximum of 4 minutes each to address their concerns. This is the only time during the council meeting the citizens are allowed to address. Please state your name and address for the record if you would like.
Sean K. Barker, I'm just gonna feel 9BC, I'm gonna use 9BC.
Sure, use whatever you,
Right.
or nothing. You don't have to tell us.
Well, that's one of the addresses of the field. So just a quick update. I've had kind of a audit of best and or worst practices maybe with the new interim manager. And a couple things were brought to light, I just want to get in front of real quick. One, we had our insurance renewal was to take place on the 9th of May. It was my understanding from our treasurer that it was on an auto pay. And find out it was not, we got a notice that the bill was not paid. I got hold of the insurance company. We filed a form stating that there were no losses during that 1 week. We were 9 days uncovered. Paid the bill and they retroactively made it effective the 9th without a gap in the loss. So we're covered again because there was an increase for the grant. So we're not. Anyway, so that's back in place and it is absolutely on auto. And I shared that verification email with 3 different emails at the city. So, next thing, the adult leagues are going well. There were a couple Facebook complaints about a scuffle on the field. I was at the field the entire time. And there was some pushing and shoving, but there was nothing that even warranted the referees throwing a flag. Both teams kind of came out. Hey, if there's a heated game, and then there was no punching or fighting or anything like that, just a lot of talking. It's an adult league, we're gonna have some of that, so. So they'll be able to play again. The next game is going to be this Saturday evening, 7 o'clock. It's the Venom playing a team, Lansing team.
No, they have to have Kent County.
They are supposed to have Kent County Sheriff's Department there. The first game that I was at, they were definitely there. This game, I saw them kind of come and go, and I couldn't catch one of them. I think they were just checking on things, because I didn't see anybody there. I stayed there the entire time, so I need to get with, there's 2 owners, 2 different teams. There's the Venom, that's owned by Rachel Forge. That's the first game that actually happened there. This was Corey Field, Central Michigan Bengals. He's very well aware that he was supposed to have people there. And like I said, I saw the sheriff's department there a couple of times, but I feel like they were just cruising through. I don't feel like they were on staff.
Do you know anything?
I do.
Okay.
So, the original schedule for the pro games that I received didn't start until next year. Now, there were games that started before that, and
Yeah. 'cause
talking with the interim,
It's not mid-June yet.
talking to the interim city manager, we have not had any issues at these football games in the past. And we still are not having any issues at these games. So the question was, do we mandate the football teams to provide law enforcement services when we're not having any issues?
Okay,
So for these games, I requested our officers to do extra patrol, the ones that are on duty, to attend these games as much as they can, to keep giving insight into whether the officers feel that these games need a mandated officer paid to be on site. So we're still getting feedback from that. We're still addressing the issue, or we're gonna require them to mandate an officer at these games all the time. So it's kind of like, do we make this football league pay $400 a night to have us there if it's not necessary? So we're still kind of feeling it out
gathering data.
and seeing if that's what we're gonna do. There always is that potential, I guess, of adults playing sports against one another, physical sports, it's gonna be talking and all that kind of stuff. Maybe fights between the teams, but I mean, is the crowd in danger? Is, any extracurricular activity going on with the crowd? So we're still kind of reviewing it, and Darrell and I are still talking about whether or not we're gonna mandate it or not. So I tried reaching out to Rachel, but I called her number twice and it said it's not working, our phone number. So I don't have a good contact number for Rachel. And when Rachel and Corey contacted us, they just talked to an officer that was a road patrol officer. So they never reached out to me. Rachel did originally, but I wasn't able to contact her back. Corey just reached out to an officer, hey, I want somebody here tonight. Well, that's not feasible. That's not how we do that. So, we're still addressing it, and I don't know if it's Rachel's responsibility to make sure all the games have officers at it, or if each individual coach has to do it, or whether the home team for that night has to do it. I don't know how that process works.
There's two home teams, the Central Michigan Bengals own entity, and Rachel's team is the Venom.
So we got Corey Steele and Rachel.
Yes, they're both considered Skinner Hill to be the home team for that field. So, yeah,
So all
and they have their own budgets and their own.
Okay, so I'll need their contact information moving forward so we can discuss this further and see what the best options are.
And they're charging people to come to these games.
They do, yes.
So, I mean, there is in theory, like,
And I don't know, how many people are showing up at these games and,
Central Michigan was huge. Venom, not so much. There wasn't a lot.
I mean, what is,
Smaller team.
what is huge?
Well, for a semi-pro team, I'd say 300-400. Would you guess that?
There was a lot of people, a lot of
My office bought 100.
Venom, that was probably about 100. That was the first game.
First game,
Yep, the first game, there was probably about 100.
that was Rachel's.
Correct.
And Corey's game had more like 3 to
Or
4.
I would say it had closer to between 3 and 4. If I mean, I didn't head count and I don't sell the tickets, so I don't know for sure. They could probably tell you exactly.
So that,
They
that
do
type of
keep
head count, I would be more inclined to, yeah.
because I was gonna say, even if there isn't a problem, like it might just.
That's a
be-
big crowd.
That's a.
Well,
good
and,
size-
sorry.
No, just, no, that's fine.
Well, and when I say 300 to 400 too, I include players. I include everybody in the
Sure.
stadium. And Central Michigan Bengals have like almost 40 people on the roster. So you've got 40 there, and that was the Grand Rapids Surge, which was another 35. So you almost have 100 in players at that point.
And you're at this game?
Yes,
Okay.
this, in
And
years
what is
past,
your-
no, now, yes.
What is your feeling on?
I thought they went really well. I've seen more disorderly crowds from youth games, to be honest. I mean, this is like you've got two mad moms talking to each other. And
Right.
it can
Yeah.
get pretty hairy. Yeah, so, but these were, there was talking, but there's a thought, couple players right now on the field on opposing teams, got in each other's face, the refs broke it up. That happens at every level. There were no punches thrown, there was no, some shoving, but that, I mean, again, that's football, it does happen.
My understanding is in the past, the problem was in the parking lot.
Well, that is what I heard, and I had even heard that the sheriff's department had been called on several occasions. Of course, I wasn't at games in the past because I don't work them. And then come to find out that that was more rumor because the sheriff's
We
department
have
had
no
no.
reports of being called reference to so many people at these football games.
Interesting, because I
And for the
swear,
first
I
3
heard
years, for the first 3 years, I didn't know we had them.
I swear I was given a text of.
Well, I I think we had, I think the manager showed up and did his own surveillance of activity going on in the park.
Okay.
We were not called.
I can tell you from sitting in the audience or in the stands for a couple of those games, there was a strong smell of marijuana and so forth coming from the parking lot. And so I'm not so sure it was always what was happening inside the stadium.
Right.
It was peripheral to the stadium that was more of the problem.
And that is, now, I'm not gonna say, I have my own views on it, and I have a highly sensitive smell for it. Let's just put it that way. I'm not a big fan. So I did occasionally catch a whiff, if that's what you're talking about, an open air. I never personally saw it being done, inside the stadium, but I was in the parking lot. I'm sure it was being done in the outside areas. I don't even know what the laws are as far as what's legal, where they could be or what they can. I know they can't be inside the stadium. And that's what I look out for. But I would catch a whiff every once in a while, and I know they could be in their car. I don't know where it's coming from, but I don't, how do you say, police parking
The
lot?
thing that I saw was actually the threat.
Oh. Yeah, okay, there was okay, I know what you're talking about. That was an email that came to the city manager through Facebook. It was a visiting team had threatened to shoot up
Right.
his prior teammates. Now, so it wasn't the home team, it
Well,
was
but
somebody on that team,
I-
yeah. it
Who
was an
is
email.
shooting whom?
Well, it was a Facebook message from one person to another, and
But-
somebody screen grabbed it and sent it, but
But shooting is.
it's bad. It's not so good. I don't know.
We would not
It
want
freaks,
to have
no,
to
no,
work
and it freaks.
public
Mhm,
look out. Yeah,
agreed. And I take that very seriously, and we did have, I believe the sheriffs were there at that particular.
that was my understanding.
That was,
But not because they were called, they were just there to be there.
we investigated that incident, and there was an internal disagreement, argument between a team from Battle Creek, and an ex-player was arguing with that team. He
Okay,
made threats, and has been making threats to that team back and forth in Battle Creek. And he made the statement that I'm gonna come up to Cedar Springs and take care of business. We investigated, we talked to the coach down there. He says, this guy doesn't even own a car. He makes these type of comments to us all the time. We reached out to that person. He said, no, those, it's just me blowing off steam with that team. I had no intention, we had never had any intention of driving us to Cedar Springs,
okay,
which is a long way for somebody to go to a game when they have games down there.
yeah,
So
well,
it was all
unless
kind of
you want
unfounded.
to shoot someone.
Right.
I don't,
So it was investigated. There's really no substance to it,
okay,
but we did
and nothing
provide,
actually happened.
we did provide services, extra services at that game, just as precaution.
Okay, this is what I remember, that was our concern trying to go forward, that there doesn't seem to, that's not like a ongoing kind of thing.
No,
Okay,
no, and our home teams, I mean, obviously we have to deal with different teams, that's the nature of the league, but our home teams, like particularly I know more about the Bengals because I know Corey Steele. Corey Steele has been coaching the youth program, he coaches K2 kids, so kindergarten through second. So they've run some off-season, the Bengals have run some off-season camps for Cedar Springs youth football and the younger kids and whatever. So they really are trying to become, give back community-wise. So I have Friends of Skinner Field have no issue with that whatsoever. And we did ask them to contact the sheriff department and contract in any way, but if the sheriff department didn't feel they need to be there, well, we're not gonna.
We're still in that process.
Okay, okay. So it sounds like they did what we requested. And like I said, I saw a lot of presents. So it wasn't like they were standing there at the gate, but I saw them a lot pull up. They come around, sometimes they come in, they're walking.
I'm guessing that a crowd of 200 to 400 people is probably the kind of thing that,
That's something that we definitely probably start requiring. They're gonna have that type of crowd in that. That's something.
it's like a homecoming high school football game.
Right.
That's about, I mean,
For the school, the school.
right, because that's a lot of people in one space. I mean, just not even necessarily violence, just stuff happens. I mean, they also
Medical was posted, I believe. I don't, I know for a fact it's been in game, and I'm pretty sure it was Cedar Springs.
Okay.
They were definitely,
Because I mean,
because they
besides-
sat back in their vehicle on the back end, as a matter of fact, they had to come and do a call.
Because I would say besides the people getting hurt on the field, when you have 400 people, I mean, someone can have a heart attack, someone, I mean,
Yeah, they come in the back,
someone can fall down the bleacher, I mean, stuff happens.
yeah, as a matter of fact, they did have to respond to an injury on the field like that. Concussion. So, yeah, I know they were there, and they were parked up on the back. Matter of fact, I got photos of them sitting in their car. So, yeah, they were there.
Are you billed for the, medical to be there?
I don't know if,
I don't know about medical. That's not us.
Marty knows, don't know.
why is everybody looking at me? You say it wasn't him this time. He only comes down the street.
Hey, I have to admit there's some confusion. I didn't realize there were two different people in charge and somebody called and whoever's in charge of that first game. And asked if we could have a medical truck down there, which I figured out was only 5 home games. And I said, sure. Well, nobody told me there was a game last week because it's a different manager.
Okay.
And that person never contacted me to have a vehicle down there. So I'm looking at May something and June 10th and August. So we didn't have a vehicle down there last week. We plan on having one this week because that was one of the dates I was given. However, if they request medical, we can.
Yeah, I hear you.
School's out and it's kind of tough to get people home on a Saturday night. I know I'm not around the area from 5 o'clock to 10 o'clock on Saturday nights because I have season passes for the racing. So there's a couple of guys that have boats out in Muskegon. There's a couple of guys that have boats out of Lincoln Lake. So it's kind of tough to get a couple of people of manpower, but if it's requested, we will try to have best to get somebody down there. And I think, I'm not, maybe Counselor Gross could help me out, I think part of their insurance and their liability and stuff says they have to have some kind of medical service on standby.
Now, do they contract you for that, or
Well,
do you just do it?
not, we haven't charged anything, but if we're gonna have 8, 10, 12 games every summer, this is maybe something we'll have to take a good hard look at.
Like, we charge the school, right? Or do we not? No?
We never have. They let us run the chain gang, so that was paying off.
Got it.
But, I wasn't aware there was 2 different managers and there was conflicting, well, not
Additional
conflicting,
games.
but opposite dates. So I will have to try to get a hold of whoever had the game last Saturday and see if they want it. I totally dropped the ball on that because I was,
I don't
didn't
think
know.
you
Well,
dropped the
no.
ball if you haven't been
No.
told.
Strictly on them.
You're not, part of your job is not to be clairvoyant.
Why not?
well, they told me I can't remember whether I'm psychic or psycho.
Well, and when it comes to the medical side of it, I mean, I can communicate the schedule to you as to when all the games.
That would be,
Yeah, the sheriff's department was supposed to fall on them because that was a contracted thing, I thought. So I thought they would have to contact the pay or whatever, you know. But if they hadn't done that, then we would have been passed it on to them. So yeah, I'll give you the schedule.
You have the contact.
Yes.
Yeah, you just,
Okay, well, so, sorry that you that takes so long. Wanted to think it went well. I wasn't, going into the start of the season, I didn't think we were gonna have any adult teams, so just, it's going game by game, we're doing lease by lease, and, like I said, we've got one this Saturday, and there'll be one next Saturday, and that will be the other team, which I'll get scheduled out, so I know that.
so is it basically every Saturday?
No, turns out they're gonna be every Saturday, almost every Saturday, because there's two teams. So like last week, the Venom was away, but the Bengals were home. Well, Bengals are away this week, Venom's home. So that's what's happening. I think the week after that, everybody's. So we'll have a weekend of decent play. So,
But just to clarify, there's
yes, yeah, I
probably,
believe it's every weekend. There's one weekend where we have a break of nothing, because they're both away. But there'll be
mostly
one
every
game
Saturday.
every Saturday for the next, assuming they don't make the playoff, every 8 weeks total with 15 week ones. Technically, what happened on the 20th was, that was a scrimmage type of game. It was actually the Bengals and the Venom playing each other. And it was like, as far as they were concerned, for bragging rights. But in the first game for the Bengals was this last weekend, it's sort of the first home game for the Venom is still that. So in 8 weeks, so there's 7 more weeks from now, it'll be done unless they make the playoff, and then they'll have one more home game. They won't have a championship game either, because that's already decided somewhere. They could have one.
So Sean, you're gonna be in contact with Marty and give them to everybody. And you'll be the point man for this.
You will have to schedule.
And we're getting contact information to Todd
But you
for the owner.
And you'll read the riot act to the owners that none of this monkey business is gonna go on and fighting, or they won't be here anymore.
I reminded them 3 and 4 and 5 times on the sideline. I was on the sideline for both games. And just trying to rein them in. And
Yeah.
and like I said, nothing happened, but people got testy. I said, you want this to be your last game?
Need a
Don't do it.
behavior management.
And they were like, and they calmed each other down because they do want to.
Well, yeah, it's a great activity to have here in Cedar Springs.
Well, and they're
Jerry
getting
has something to
paid,
say.
right?
The players aren't, but the teams are. Yes, the teams, I keep the players paid to play. I think. A nominal or whatever they charge. And then they charge anywhere from $7 to $10 admission to the games. To the people that come in, you know, so they were very, and they sell concession is their own deal too. So Skinner Field has no revenue except, and that was gonna be my next part, we approved the pricing, we charge $200 per home game for a day game. And $300 for a night game, which includes the field.
Right.
So that's, so we're making $200 there. You know,
Does it cover the cost?
oh yeah, because really all we would have, if it's a day game, is water, and there's a lot of water going on, like toilets and whatever. And then a little fraction more to, ice.
Is that, the honor with the concession stand?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
They, yeah,
Where-
$200 gives them. No, the $200 gives them access to all of the buildings except storage. So they can use the tower, they can use the one concession building down, the Spiritware building, nobody does, it's kind of an exclusively a youth thing. With people studying. So yeah, it covers the electric for that building and the water. Mostly it's water, I would say, a lot of toilet flushing, you know, during those games. And then, the night game, yeah, they're $100 usually, we'll say. We have no way of knowing for sure, but just doing averages, it appears that it costs us almost $100 to run those lights for a game.
Sure.
Based on the spikes that we get and go.
So, like last Saturday, it lasted longer than 10. Is that normal?
No, they got a late start. I think it was on to 11 almost.
It's quite late. I don't know if the neighborhood's gonna like that very well, but.
Well, and well, that's the question. It's my understanding that the ordinance for
Noise.
what is it, microphones, the
Amplification.
amplification should not noise stop at 11 o'clock on Saturday. Is that-
I think that's right. At County Commissioner.
Okay,
It's 11.
but yeah, I tell them they were supposed to kick off at 7 and be done by 10. They didn't kick off for almost 8 minutes. And I immediately tried to get those, especially, but we have 2 sets of lights obviously on the side of the field. I turned the ones off that face the houses, like as soon as everybody's done, because the houses are darker. And this would be able to operate. I pay attention when we're almost at 11 o'clock, because they shut the power down. I didn't know that. But they should usually be done by 10.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Was it after 11? Or no?
Well, I don't know, I think it's 10:30, the noise is. I don't know if that's in my head, but I can take a look.
Yeah,
But
Something
it
to
was,
be
we'll check.
reviewed.
it was quite late.
Just try and get them out of there.
We were turning the sprinkler on and it's still. And I'm several blocks away.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was one by one. I know I was there till after midnight because I think,
Sure.
but, I'm not sure.
And we're not like trying to find
Well,
it,
I will,
but it's a concern if it's gonna be an every
they need to kick off on time.
Saturday thing.
If they kick off at 7 o'clock, there's no reason to not done it by 10. 3 hours is 23. I mean, that's, you know,
I thought maybe there was 2 games or something.
they had an exhibition with, actually there was Lansing came in, or not Lansing, Muskegon, the Calvary Knights, played Monroe. And that was a scrimmage type of deal. They didn't have any, they got kicked off the Muskegon field because of graduation, was supposed to be inside and moved it outside or something like that. So they came down and did that earlier, which is why they got stuff.
I see.
And they went ahead and made the point to run about. So we actually kind of double this that way. Anyway,
So what cancels these things as far as weather?
like I use the high school rules. So we follow that just because of the problem. Now, I don't know what their league says. I just know that if there's lightning, everybody's getting off the field. Tornado warnings, 104. Yeah.
Watches?
Temperature does 104 heat index is what I use because that's what the school uses. Which we may get close to it coming up, you know, especially for the afternoon games. So
Just rain.
rain does not unless we're lightning.
I didn't know if it like tore up the field. It kind of-
Yeah,
That's what I'm asking.
if that field drains very well.
Okay.
So if it rained for 2 or 3 days straight and then the game was going on, we may want to reschedule it. But if it just started raining during the game, it's a very sandy, whoever put it in, it really did not drain really well. And it's a very sandy soil.
Way before me.
I like to take breath.
If anything, based on the fact that there's a lot of wear in the center of the field, it kind of ditched it for a while. And there's been some work done on that to get it built back up in order so it drains and flows. But that does puddle up in the center of the field, which could make it a little muddier faster. But one comment to you, Sean, and I know from working with you and the rest of them who are down there at time, many hours are volunteered by the people of Friends of Skinner Field. Any report that you give in the future should have a line item in there indicating approximate hours volunteered throughout the year in the maintenance and the supervision of the field. It is a cost that anybody else picked up for it. They're gonna have to be aware if there was to change hands, just as the labor that you're gonna have to put in to do this, and you're not necessarily gonna get paid for it. Many hours are put in by people who work on that, by volunteers, so. And that's just something we didn't have, no, we should have had.
A lot of administrative efficiencies pointed out in the last few weeks, which I'm been working hard to fix, including my last one was we added a top-notch secretary for the law report situation and the reporting to city council deficiencies don't happen anymore. So regardless of whatever happens in the future, as far as, you know, police goes, at least for now, that's going to be buttoned up. Her name is Jean Celine. She was voted in on May 23rd and the minutes were given to the Department of Rent.
We have a monthly meeting.
Quarterly, which was another thing. We have quarterly meetings. We had dropped off the yearly meetings in 2020 because we didn't have anybody on there. And then we just was like, okay, let's do an annual meeting and vote in budget in 2021. Because really our budget just consists of a $500 slush fund to get nuts and bolts if this pops or that pops. And then we pay our utility bills. We don't have any other
expenses per se. We don't run concessions, we don't have tickets, we don't do any cash. We just do much, so we go in, and all of our leases in 2021, we only had one. Right, so there was 2 years football, are we gonna take their money or aren't we? We can vote on that once and we're done. Are we gonna raise it? No, we didn't. So we didn't have coffee yet. I'm making excuses, but one is, I just held a yearly meeting. Now, I did mention it to the previous city manager that we don't really have a reason to meet. Didn't give me permission not to, so I'm not saying we did. But I did mention it, that we don't meet monthly because we have nothing to talk about. We're not buying things, we're not proving things, but it was brought to my attention that if we were meeting on a regular basis, because we should, we could get more input from the community, we could recoup a lot easier, and maybe we could find other revenue streams. So we could do things.
Great.
It seems pretty simple. All right, but we're working on it.
Okay.
All right. Sorry about that.
Any-
More
no,
important.
no, no. Well, we would have put you on the agenda if we had asked to.
Oh, yeah. I was just gonna give you a quick thing.
But for future reference.
I was just gonna remind you your 5 minutes are up.
But if you ask. we'll
Yes,
put you on the
yes,
agenda.
absolutely. And actually, Darla had offered to put me on there, on the agenda, and I thought, oh, I'll just do a quick thing real quick. I have to do so quick. So sorry.
Okay, I would rather that we had this information than not, particularly for our medical and our sheriff.
Yes, yes.
All right.
I can break that down.
Any other public comment? Anybody on Zoom?
I do not see any members of the public on Zoom.
All right, moving on, we have public hearings, adoption of the agenda. At this time, I would take a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make that a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll support that.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. We have an agenda. Moving on to the consent agenda. Council members may request that any or all items be removed from the consent agenda. A motion is done in order to adopt all items not removed from the consent agenda. Requesting the removal of an item from the consent agenda is that's a tongue twister. From the consent agenda is a prerogative afforded each council member and does not require the support of other council members. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I am going to call roll because it has some money involved. Ms. Atchison.
Yes.
Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Ms. Powell.
Yes.
And Mayor Conley votes yes. Moving on to action items. A motion to set a special city council meeting for the purpose of interviewing internal candidates for the city manager position on June 22nd, 2023 at 6 p.m. My only question is, and she's not here to tell us, is can Counselor Nixon make 6 p.m.?
So that's first of all.
6 is often a struggle. She gets out at, in theory, assuming she has someone to replace her at 5:30.
I guess we'd have to ask her, but if we have a
I
quorum.
know in the past, 6:30 has been a better option for her. I don't know how that works for everyone else.
Works for me.
It works for me. Madam Clerk, is 6:30 available as an option?
Yep, this is just a suggestion. So
Sure.
we can amend as needed.
Yeah, well, you all have to be here, and so does the internal candidate.
And Jerry.
So, I mean,
I just slip in whenever you can make it. That's
the
all.
6:30 as opposed to 6, and does that date work?
Well, my scheduling changes on occasion, but yes, I will make every attempt to be there at that time.
Okay, I just know that for Counselor Nixon, a little bit later is better. All right, so I would take a motion to set that for properly 6:30 on June 22nd.
I will make a motion to set the special city council meeting for the purpose of interviewing internal candidates for the city manager position on June 22nd, 2023 at 6:30 PM.
Or,
Any discussion?
we did find out today that we have one candidate.
Marty? You lost
Oh, I don't want the position.
you lost your chance. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, I will, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. We have a special meeting to interview candidates. Discussion items. An ordinance to amend section 32-6 pertaining to definitions and to amend division 2 yard. Use height, etc. requirements of Article 4 supplement regulation to add a new section 32-156 of chapter 32 zoning of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Cedar Springs. The amendment would establish regulations for building mounted and ground mounted solar energy systems in the City of Cedar Springs. So this is about people who want to put up solar panels. Any questions? This is a discussion item. And we have to have multiple readings before we can approve it. And anything from planning commission that we should?
No, not a lot, we're just trying to make it so, a lot of solar panels and things are, are
Popping up.
things to do now, and so we tried to make an ordinance that was going to be, that could be used.
And I'm assuming this is not like the light that you put around your driveway.
No.
This is for the actual like full panels. that
Solar
you-
arrays.
Yeah.
Right, that plug into the electrical system.
Yeah.
Any discussion?
My only part of this would be is, those panels reflect. Like if you were sitting in your living room and your neighbor had a, solar panel and the sun is just boiling into your eyes, is there any way to address that problem before it's too late?
I think that they did with, the angles. Yeah, because there are some ground mounted ones you can tap, and that those are functional industrial.
Sometimes the reflection off of a car is just about blinding.
But this,
I didn't know.
but they're trying to get them to be more on the road. So,
They're also, the new ones are less reflective.
yeah, they're trying to do more in the residential areas on the road.
The big thing with the roof mounts is all based on the construction code anyway, and the house didn't support it and things of that nature. And the only way to do a problem with that one, if you have a second story home next to a single story. So the likelihood of it being pointed towards the second story would be less, because this one be blocking the sun most of the time anyway.
Well,
So
and it's, those panels are made to collect.
the functionality are just.
Ms. Johnson has something to add.
There is a section in there that addresses the reflective nature of
Right.
solar panels. It does say that they must be neutral in color and substantially non-reflective and shall not cause a nuisance to nearby properties.
Thank you, I knew that was in there, but I couldn't
Yeah.
tell you where.
Additional to go on sunlight or glare reflected on neighboring dwellings or adjacent roads.
So where is that? There's two there.
That is on page 2 and section 32-561, section A, subpart
Okay,
2B.
good, thank you.
She-
I knew that we had, yeah, she is. I knew that we had addressed it, but I couldn't. Thank you. Rebecca.
I know that, in general, they're trying to make solar panels less reflective because everything that reflects is actually lost. So they're making them more matte to be more absorbed.
The panels themselves, sometimes they have frames that are
Yeah.
like a, chrome on a car, blinding. Okay,
Excellent. And thank you.
It's not white
Questions, community event calendar? Overall calendar, Cedar Springs Public Library Board, article from the clarifier. Lawful more lawful non-conforming properties, North Kent Community Enrichment Ice Cream Social. North Kent Community Enrichment Summer Program, Algonquin Township Master Plan Notice. And I don't know if I see it specifically on here, but we saw that the Kent County Sheriff took the ribbon and opened their new building. So that's very exciting. Very happy to see that happen. So any questions about any communication? And department report, city manager.
Good evening.
I know that she's supposed to be on vacation, but I did see that Ms. Falcon is on Zoom.
Good evening. Yes, I am with you tonight via Zoom. I just want,
Specific we should know?
pardon me?
Anything specific we should know?
I just wanted to mention that on Wednesday, Rebecca and I had the pleasure of joining the Right Place and about 30 folks from all over the place. We attended, it was called Developer Day. And it was wonderful. There were bankers on, it was a bus trip. We toured Plainfield Township. We came to the Cedar Springs and looked at several sites here, had lunch at the brewery, and then we followed up in Sparta, Village of Sparta. Bankers were with us, developers, you name it. There was a person on the bus that represented everybody. And it really gave us a chance to showcase, you know, some vacant property that we have for sale. Not only the city, but other realtors met us at some locations and showed property that's for sale, you know, private sales as well. So it was just a really great day. This is the second time the Right Place has organized something like this. So I hope they continue to do it.
Wonderful. Exciting to hear that.
Do you think we got any bites on our property?
Travis from the Right Place said he would follow up with me next week. They were going to reach out to everybody that attended to get feedback, and then the communities will know, you know, after that. So hopefully.
Right?
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I have.
Sounds wonderful.
Have fun.
Thank you.
I do have a question for Ms. Falcon, if I can.
Absolutely.
Okay. It's funny how many people just recently have asked me when we're going to be doing Main Street. Have we heard anything additional about when it might happen?
Yes, we were informed from our engineer that we missed the June bid letting from MDOT. So it's been pushed to the July bid letting. So as soon as that occurs in early July, in the bid specs, we told anybody that bids on it, the week of red flannel cannot be interrupted at all. So we kind of broke the project into two different sections. The first section would take between 6 and 7 weeks. And we want to get that scheduled before red flannel. So probably late August, September timeframe. And then the second half would happen after red flannel, and that would be from the bridge to 18 Mile, just a 2-week project. So it's all in the bid specs. So whoever bids on the project, they are aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Good. Then Department of Public Works. You got anything for us, Bill?
Yeah, I'm sure you all saw that Anlon's back in town today, taking sidewalk out. They're gonna pour it tomorrow, hopefully. And then I would hope to see that project all buttoned up within a week or so, all the barricades picked up and things taken care of.
Wonderful. They look fabulous, by the way.
Yep, they did a good job in a timely manner,
Yeah,
so.
you were great.
And anything on the well? I don't know if I saw anything in the packet on it.
So the wells will probably start to move after the July 1, the new fiscal year. Everything's in place to get started. Some things are ordered, but won't start until the next fiscal year.
Okay. Which is July 1. Wonderful. Anything else for us?
That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Okay, and back just in time, police department.
We'll make this quick and we're wrapping things up. Sheriff's Department's open for business. over
We
there.
saw that. It looks
So-
wonderful.
Great building.
A lot of space.
Lot of space. Our record unit at startup here in June will be open Monday to Friday. We're short in records, so it can be reevaluated. The services that are needed until more people start coming, it may lessen after June. But for June, we're planning on having a record clerk there. Monday to Friday. We're not fully operational. We don't have a fingerprint machine yet, so some of our services are not operational for everybody, but we're open.
And then there's the public health.
And the health department is open, yep.
Which is really wonderful. That's, I mean, that's otherwise, the public health department is quite, hype for people up in this end of the county. So that's really
And it
good.
was, having us in town brings more services readily available to us. During our grand opening, we had a walk away from Brooks retirement home over there, and there was a very elderly person that walked away, and the staff couldn't find her, 45 minutes to an hour, they called us. We found her within minutes, because we had 6 cruisers there and a canine unit. And the canine unit tracked, she had gone back to the field, down into a ditch, and was out of sight. And it would have taken us probably quite a while to find her, but it wasn't the canine.
Was someone out for
They
a
were right there.
night
So
day walk?
dog tracked right to her and went to the hospital to get checked out. So it just kind of shows having them in town brings more people readily available. So,
Thrilled. I mean, I'm sure they're sad that you're not here. Like, great.
I get over here a lot.
I bet you
get
do.
over here a lot. So,
So,
yeah, but we're working on these football games and just next game. It sounds like this 3-4 meeting is not the norm. The norm is more part of the 100. But this was a big Grand Rapids team that posted here and they won it last year, so they draw a huge crowd. So. And they played a local team that draws a lot of local people coming in.
okay,
So we'll evaluate it and get it set up and.
wonderful. Anything else? All right, fire department, Marty.
Here, I don't have a lot. As you can see by our numbers, we've been busy.
Yeah,
This is one of the few Thursdays that I've had available where I didn't have to
you
zoom
don't
in.
have to stand.
I didn't have, yeah, I do.
Okay, for you, not me.
My schedule has been a little hectic lately, the last 2 months, it's, supposed to be in a couple, 3 different places all in the same time, so I
That,
apologize to the board that, I try to make as many of these I can in person, but, the Zoom is a pretty handy thing.
we'd like you to be able to zoom in.
Like I said, we've been busy, things are progressing. We had, maintenance, general maintenance on all 3 of our engines in the heavy rescue and a couple minor things come up. We gotta run number 11, our heavy rescue down. They're gonna do some exhaust work on it. But things are going good, things are fairly smooth. And we're gliding through the everyday activities. On the consent agenda tonight was the approval from the council on verbiage for our full-timer. I will post that tomorrow. And we have, I believe, working with Dara, which has been fantastic through this whole thing. Really helping out a lot. It looks like by July 10th, we're gonna have a full-timer.
Wonderful. That's long overdue.
Do we have in-house candidates? Yes, we do. It'll be posted internally first, and if nobody applies, then we'll post it outside. But I believe we have a candidate that's getting kind of answered.
Good.
Well, he's still got a couple, 3
Well,
weeks.
not good if they're getting answered, but good that we have internal candidates.
We got a couple, 3 weeks, and I hope something doesn't else well.
Wonderful.
If there's any other questions I can answer.
Fire truck report, the antique fire truck, anything moving on that?
Well, I know everybody.
Well, I do have a new son-in-law that is either in or out. I just want to know.
We're gonna put some pressure because October is coming rapidly. If we can't get it done with that individual, then we'll look elsewhere.
Okay,
I have a couple of contacts available if I need to.
okay.
I really, really, really hate to, but
Well, he did an awful lot to get it as far as it went, and I think it'll be smooth sailing after this.
well, he even made the comment that, we can wrap that up in a couple of weeks. It's just a matter of getting it up there and getting it done.
Okay,
I'll go up and tell him Mr. Bill something.
okay,
If that's what it takes, Mr. Gross will go up.
there you go.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. City clerk.
It has been a very busy month for the clerk's department. I just wanted to report back on the legislative lunch that I went to.
Yeah.
That went very well. Unfortunately, our representatives were unable to make it, but I was able to connect with several others, which is just a great thing because anytime we can spread the word about what our election needs are going to be to any voting member,
Yeah.
whether they represent us or not, it's great to have a lending ear from those individuals. Other than that, next week I'm going to be at a conference, and as you guys know, I'm part of the MAMC executive board, so I am a conference vice chair for that, so I do a lot of planning, so we do
And thank
everything.
you, by the way, for representing us so well and taking part in that professional board.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a lot of work. The ladies in the office know that as conference comes up, a lot of things, have to get done, so, looking forward to it. We'll be in Detroit for a week, so, I will be there all of next week.
Wonderful. You should get lunch at the Detroit Institute of Art. Their cafeteria is particularly good, and they have fabulous giant murals on the building, Frida Kahlo, and I have a soft spot. It's right next door to Wayne State.
Thank you for the suggestion.
All right, Finance Director, Darla's back up. She's doing double duty.
Yeah, so it's been a very busy month for myself as well. I want to thank the ladies in the office for helping me out, trying to do double duty, 2 jobs here. It is a lot of work, very stressful at times, but I think we're doing a great job. There's a lot to be done in the month of June, though, to prepare for our fiscal year coming July 1 and getting the tax bills ready to be mailed out by the end of the month. So that's at the top of my list.
All right. Thank you, as always. You just make it all happen. As we told you back at budget time, the budget that you put together that even includes pictures is just phenomenal. Any questions for the hat of Finance Director? All right, code enforcement, building inspection. Boards and commissions. Anybody got anything? I guess then we're moving on to council comments. Mr. Gross, would you like to go first?
Sure, why not? I think things are going smoothly, considering the load that, both our clerk and our treasurer and interim city manager, they're scheduling. I've watched things around town and for the DPW. I've always kept track of what fire department and sheriff department does, and, we have a good group of people working for the city. And, I honestly believe they're all working for the city and not working for themselves, and I appreciate that very much. It's the benefit of the city that they are working and doing the jobs that they're doing, so appreciate it. I can tell you from experience, sometimes by working with Friends of Skinner Field the years that I did it, I wonder if it was a thankful job or not, or just thankless.
the end results in the big, or the long run of it all is being able to watch the youth out there playing. And whatever it takes to be able to finance it and maintain that field where it can be that way. I know there was some discussion at one point in time that, geez, maybe we'll just make it all into a regular park and not worry about it. There's a lot of things in athletics that promote and develop kids. One is being teamwork and working together. And I think in some ways that leads right back into what we do here. What you do in your entire life is being able to work with others to achieve a goal. And I think very, very beneficial in sports. And for us to work together to get the goals the way that we need to also. So that's it.
All right. Thank you. Counselor Powell.
Well, I went to the State of Michigan Garden Club Conference. It was wonderful, and I know I spoke to everyone about 5 years ago at the beginning of our sponsoring the black swallowtail butterfly to be our state butterfly. And it never got very close until this year, and it's going to the Florida representatives. And we have a very strong backing, and then we'll get it into the Senate by the end of the year. And this beautiful, gorgeous, wonderful butterfly will be our state butterfly. I'm going to hand you all some pictures and the kind of environment it needs. And when you see this butterfly, it is magnificent, and it will be our butterfly. So we're very proud of that, and very proud of the things we learn and we do at the Garden Club. Got some great ideas for doing some DDA projects. And other than that, thank you everybody for being here. And I'll give you one of these so you can study up on this great butterfly. Thank you. Bye.
I still have my pin. I just wore it this last week. All right, Ms. Atkinson.
Once again, I think that the staff that we have is amazing. That they are amazing, keeping things up with things. Hopefully pretty soon we'll have to see the city manager. And we'll be able to hire another finance person and take some of the weight off these ladies. And I think everything's going great. Thank you so much.
And I would just like to say, I know she's already left, but big thank you to Ms. Dawes as the director of Lakeland. I found her, and I think, I don't want to put words in Ms. Powell's mouth, but I think we both found her to be very informative when she spoke to the Cedar Springs Library Board the other night. And I appreciated her coming to talk to us, and I appreciate her information clarifying about KDL, about budgeting, about what we need to fund a library, about the requirements for having dedicated millage for state aid, or there's just a whole plethora of things that she's been just top notch at explaining and understood. There were class 3 libraries with qualifications required for a manager or a director, and especially since we no longer have a library director. So that's been, I really appreciated her coming again here to Cedar Springs to talk to us tonight. So we have all these wonderful things, sidewalks and water and things happening that make this community so fabulous. And we're just also looking at our library. So for that, I am grateful. And with that, we're adjourned. 31.